Hey guys, gonna try to get through this as quick as I can. Okay, so this video is going to be about point of view and purpose. Okay, and I know some of you guys are asking, like, okay, why is he having us go through this? Why are we talking about this? This is a history class, it's not an English class. But whenever we look at sources, and I'm not just talking about in this class, I'm talking about like whenever you guys get out on your own, and you're reading something or you see something on TV, hear something, or see something on Twitter, wherever, it's important to think about that source and where it came from and take a second and reflect. Okay, what is this author's opinion? And what might have affected their opinion. Why are they tweeting this? Why are they writing this? Okay, or thinking about their purpose. Okay, so that's why I'm having you guys listen to this. Okay, and watch this and answer these questions, just like I did my 8A classes and first block on B Day. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started. First off, what is an author's point of view or viewpoint? And I'm not talking about like first person and second person and third person and all that stuff. Just in general, what is an author's point of view or viewpoint? Think about that for 1 second and answer the question. Okay, so an author's viewpoint is basically simply their opinion or mindset on certain ideas. Okay, so it's how they feel about a topic or a subject. Okay, and all of those things. Okay, and how old somebody is, whether they're rich or poor, or what job they have, can impact that point of view. Right, on what they believe, what they think, what they hold to be important. That all depends on a lot of factors as far as their opinion or their point of view. Okay, but the big thing is that an author's point of view is simply their opinion or mindset on something. So here's a question to kind of get you thinking. Okay, so I want you to answer this in the Ed puzzle here in a second. What is the difference between a 70-year-old's point of view on cell phones and a high school student's view on cell phones? What would the difference be between somebody who's 70, 75 years old, their viewpoint on cell phones, and a high school student's view on cell phones? What do you think the difference would be? Okay, now many of you guys probably said, like, and we all know somebody like this is like, you have somebody in your family, 70, 75 years old, they don't see any need for cell phones, right? And what has affected that is that many of them did not obviously grow up with it, or actually none of them grew up with it, all right? It was not a part of their everyday lives like it has been for you guys and even people in my generation. Okay, so experiences definitely shapes our point of view or opinion, or an author's point of view or opinion in most cases, because you have very few teenagers who are like, oh, cell phones are terrible, and you have very few 70-year-olds who are like, oh, cell phones are awesome. I mean, are there some people in those camps? Sure, but if we're talking about what the the vast majority of people believe, most people who are 70, 80 years old are going to say, like, why do we have cell phones? And most people y'all's age are going to say, cell phones are essential. Cell phones are necessary. Okay, that's just to get y'all thinking about that. Now, what are some factors that can affect a person's point of view or opinion? Okay, in other words, what are some things that can impact people's opinions, how they view things, all of those things? I want you to brainstorm for me a list right now, type it in the box, and then I'll give you guys some examples here in a second. Okay, so I'm sure you guys had a good list. Here's some I have. Okay, so if what you put is not on the list, that does not mean what you had is wrong. It just means I didn't think of it myself. Okay, you guys always come up with ideas that I did not have before. Okay, that's why we have class discussions where I ask you guys what you think, because it's not a class where I just tell you a bunch of random crap and then that's it. Okay, because I don't want to be like that. I want you guys to have your own understanding on a lot of these things. So, what are some factors that can affect a person's point of view or their opinion? A large part is your wealth or status in society. Okay, so like if you are a very wealthy person and you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, so to speak, you might not understand some of the struggles of somebody who's been in poverty their whole life. Or, um, like in the case of Andrew Carnegie, his opinion on the income gap between the rich and the poor, right? Okay, this is going to be a question on your final product later. But think about it. Carnegie's is a really wealthy dude, okay? Is he going to come out and say that the income gap is a terrible thing and that it's a horrible thing that he has more money than the average American? Probably not. Okay, so his wealth or status impacts his opinion in that case. Next thing is where you live. Okay, that can impact you, like urban versus rural. Definitely different experiences, definitely different opinions shaped um, based on whether you lived in a city or the country. Just our general upbringing. Okay, so like how our family raised us, the values that our family instilled in us and taught us to be important. Um, in some cases, like whether we, the type of family we may have had, all of those things can affect a person's point of view or opinion on different factors or different ideas. Um, Whether or not you've experienced something similar before. Okay, this is huge. Okay, so our experiences often shape how we view certain things or our opinions on a variety of matters. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. What is the difference between sympathy and empathy? And it's okay if you don't know. I just want to see if you guys know the answer to this. Okay, good job. Sympathy means this. It means that, like, basically kind of like you feel sorry for somebody. Like, oh, like somebody's going through this terrible ordeal. You feel sorry for them. You feel bad for them. Like, oh, man, dude, that sucks that you're going through this. Empathy means you have sympathy for them because you went through the exact same thing. Okay, you know exactly what they're going through because you went through something very similar, if not identical. Okay, so that is a major factor too, because if we go through the same thing as somebody else, we have that bond with them because it's like, oh, you went through this terrible time, I went through this terrible time, and here's how both of us got through it. But also, we understand the specific struggles that that person may have had in that moment. Okay, so that's another thing that can affect a person or an author's point of view or opinion is whether or not they've experienced it before. If they haven't experienced it before, they may not even have an opinion on it. They may be indifferent, right? So our experiences shape us a lot. Peer pressure or societal pressure, what kind of goes back to upbringing, but kind of different in a different way. Who we're around, right? Like we may be more reluctant to have one opinion because all our friends have that opinion, okay? Or we may be um, more likely to have a certain opinion because that's what society tells us, right? Okay, so both of those can have a big belief, and then religious beliefs. Okay, that's huge. Okay, now because you think some people are very religious. Would somebody have an opinion? Likely have an opinion if it went against their religion and their religious beliefs? Probably not. So religious beliefs can sometimes be a barrier as far as like it can sometimes kind of keep people's opinions at a certain um, aspect, and that's fine because somebody's religious beliefs are part of their opinions, right? But just know that religious beliefs, peer pressure, societal pressure, everything on this list can impact somebody's opinion and the author's opinion. So anytime you read a source, keep all this in mind. Think about who they are, what they've experienced, where they're from, because all those factors might influence how they view something. Okay. What is an author's purpose? Okay, so I was supposed to have a click for you guys to answer the question, but basically, usually the author has a specific idea that they want the reader to see or understand. That's an author's purpose. It is their reason for writing. Okay, so they're trying to inform the reader of something. They're trying to persuade the reader of something. They're trying to entertain. But in most cases, in this class, we're really centered around this: persuade. Okay, persuade. Usually the author of the source is trying to persuade you of something. Okay, so think about this. Think about Source B by Carnegie's Worker. Okay, remember the one where he was like, "Oh, Almighty Carnegie, we love thee, even though our children have no clothes. Like, you're an awesome dude, even though my wives and kids have no clothes, but thanks for donating the church organ." That source, with all the sarcasm, written by Carnegie's worker. What was his purpose in writing that? Okay, what did he want people to think about Andrew Carnegie by saying some of those things? Okay, think about that for a second. Now, his purpose in writing that, okay, good job. His purpose in writing that was to basically persuade the public that Andrew Carnegie was not having a positive impact on society, right? That he, did not treat his workers well. They were trying to get people. The author was trying to get people to believe that Andrew Carnegie had a negative impact on society, that he was not a beneficial person to society. That was their purpose, to get the reader to think negatively about Andrew Carnegie. Okay. So again, but it goes back to that question about point of view. How That's his purpose, but how is his position as Carnegie's worker? How does that affect his point of view or his viewpoint? Think about it. Okay. Carnegie's probably not paying him a lot. That's definitely going to impact his opinion on Andrew Carnegie. Okay. There we go. Now think about today. Okay. Why is it so important to consider how a person's status or position may have impacted their point of view and purpose for writing? That's the first question I want you guys to think about. Why is it important to consider how a person's status or position may have impacted their point of view and purpose for writing? So answer that. And that is important. It kind of goes back to what we've talked about so far. It's just so important because that can really impact their opinion all in all. Again, Andrew Carnegie is not going to come out and say, it's a terrible thing that I have more money than everybody else. Like, he's not going to do that. Carnegie's worker, in most cases, probably isn't going to say that Carnegie's the greatest man to walk the planet. I mean, he might if he really thinks that. But if he's getting underpaid by Carnegie, that's definitely going to impact his opinion on Carnegie. In a modern context, okay, somebody who has never been out of Trigg County, Kentucky their entire life, okay, that might impact their view of the city, like New York, one way or the other. They may say, there's no sense to go to the city. I got everything I have right here. Or they might say, I want something more than this. I want to go to the city where they actually do have stuff, because around here, I don't have a lot. So our experiences and our positions definitely impact, okay? Our status definitely impact, like, our position, our point of view, whatever, and the reason we're writing something. So anytime you're analyzing a source, you got to think, okay, who is this author? Okay, what is their status in society? Why are they writing this? Okay, so always think who, what, why about the author. That's got to be the first thing before you get into annotating, before you start marking. You got to think about who the author is. Okay, and all these things that might have impacted the opinion or what the author is saying in this moment right now. Next thing, okay, because this is definitely a problem, and this is a question that I put on Google Classroom as well. What are some ways that we can determine if a source is biased or misleading? Okay, now this is a problem in all society today. It's both sides. It's left, it's right, it's Democrat, it's Republican. We have sources that can be very, very biased or misleading. So what are some ways that we can recognize when a source might be biased toward one particular side? Brainstorm that real quick. Now, again, if you had some things on your list that I do not have right here where I'm thinking about it, that's fine. You're probably right. I probably just didn't think of it. But some ways you can definitely recognize when a source is biased if it only acknowledges one side. Okay, if it only acknowledges one side of the argument, then it's probably favoring just that one side. If they don't even address the other side, it's definitely biased. Another way to see if a source is biased or misleading is the evidence that they use. If the evidence only supports, like the news article only really brings in evidence that supports one side or shows one side of the story, then it's probably a little bit biased. It's probably a little bit misleading. Okay. The other aspect of this is the language, okay, that they use. Okay, so what type of adjectives or description words are they using to describe various things in this source? Okay, from the side of the argument that they're on, are they using only positive adjectives like super loaded adjectives like awesome, excellent, amazing, all those things. Are they using those type of adjectives? Okay, and then think about what they're saying about the other side, if they even do address the other side. Is all the words they use to describe the other side and from a negative standpoint? Okay, because here's the deal: a source can have an opinion. Okay, that like you read it and you're like, okay, this is the author's opinion. Here's what they think. And we're going to talk about this later this year, but you can't just state your opinion and call it a day. Okay, you got to state your opinion. You got to back it up with evidence, but you have to address the other side. Okay, it's just ignorant if you don't address the other side, because if anything, it kind of shows you're scared, right? Like, oh, the other side is kind of right. I'm not going to address this. All right, so you have to address the other side, come up with a rebuttal, okay, to that counterclaim. All right, and that's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. Again, I apologize if this was a little bit long, but this simulated us going through all of this in class. So again, hopefully you learned something. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. And whether it's morning, afternoon, or night, have a great rest of your day.